Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
Oh, hi, everybody. Ezra Levant here. How you doing? It's nice to be back here. 2 days back to back. Normally, I only do it Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but of course, on Monday we had the special live stream from Kean Bexley from the COVID jail in Calgary. A very interesting and popular live stream that was. I hope you saw it. Yesterday went on a little long. I think we went for about 90 minutes, didn't we? Because I just felt the absolute need to tell you about every movie I've watched since I was a teenager. I should say that I kept thinking about those things even when I went home, and I found Ex Machina on Roku for free. And I watched the whole movie again, and it is outstanding, and I recommend it again. And it'll get you thinking. I'll leave it at that. But because I went on so long about movies, I didn't cover some of the politics that I normally do. And so I've got a big list of things I want to cover today. As I think you know, my friend Justin puts together a roster of some of the videos and other things that he sees me following on Twitter or that we're mentioning around the office or things that the lads are editing in the back there. So boy, we got about 10 things today. And my goal today is to refrain a bit from the tangents, although I like them, and I like to think that there's a point behind them, even if the point is just to show you an awesome movie that I really want you to see, like The Mission with Jeremy Irons and Robert De Niro. But I'm going to try and avoid the tangents, and I'm going to try and catch up on some of the news from the past few days. Let me tell you what's on this roster here, and we're going to try and go through it. I'm also going to try and answer all your super chats, and I'm going to try and do that throughout the show as opposed to waiting right till the end. Here's what I got on deck here. I'm still very interested in the Andrew Cuomo story. He's the governor of New York who should have been run out of office for sending infectious COVID senior citizens from hospitals into seniors' homes, into long-term care facilities. He probably killed 10,000 people by doing that. He probably killed 3-4 times the number of people who died on 9/11 by that action. I'm not blaming the virus on him. I'm blaming that decision to send infectious people into seniors' homes. I'm absolutely blaming that on Cuomo. And you could call that negligence, some sort of homicide of some sort. I wouldn't obviously call it first-degree murder, but there was an absolute willful blindness at best, let me put it that way. He should have been run out of town on that. Instead, they gave him an Emmy. I swear to God, you know what an Emmy is? It's a trophy for like TV shows. They gave him, can you call up a headline? They gave him an Emmy saying his performance was outstanding. Performance, yeah, that's what it was. It was dramatic acting. Because they wanted a foil to Donald Trump. They wanted someone they could cheer for fighting the virus, and Andrew Cuomo to receive international Emmy for masterful COVID-19 briefings. What a masterful man. In fact, New York and California really had the worst COVID outcomes in America compared to, say, Florida or Texas or South Dakota. But he was a Democrat, and they thought he would be, I don't know, president one day, at the very least, attorney general under Joe Biden. Well, the typical Democrat male feminist characteristics showed themselves. And again, this is not something new either. He was a serial, like Bill Clinton, everywhere he went, he was, can I get the nip pick? Everywhere he went, he was scanning the room for young women. And how old is Andrew Cuomo? He's got to be late 60s, right? Andrew Cuomo age. 63. All right. 63 years old. He looks, and his brother, Chris Cuomo, who is a host on CNN is 50. Yeah, you could tell there's a real age difference between them. Chris Cuomo is 50 and his brother Andrew is 63. They look their age, but they look good for their age, both of them, I have to say. Although I'm going to show you something, and look away if you are of tender heart. I want to show you something you'll never be able to unsee. You know the picture I'm talking about? And at one of these briefings, Andrew Cuomo decided to represent. Ever watch that TV show called Billions? I know you do, Justin. You've seen Billions, right? Billions is loosely modeled after Eliot Spitzer, who was the Attorney General and then I think the governor of New York, and he got caught with prostitutes and the whole thing came tumbling down and he lied about it and it was just awful. So the show called Billions, it's about a billionaire and about this politically ambitious prosecutor, and they're in this struggle. And the politically ambitious prosecutor is into bizarre S&M sex. And that's modeled after Eliot Spitzer, so you're supposed to say, oh yeah, that's sort of realish, because Eliot Spitzer. Well, Andrew Cuomo, 63-year-old governor of New York, at a briefing, thought he would wear a tight shirt. Okay, no problem. And nipple rings. I'm sorry, it's a fact. Zoom in. I'm sorry to do that to you. This is just one picture of, unfortunately, a great number of people. He's got the barbells on. For other occasions, he might have a nice pirate's hoop. You know, if he's going fancy, he might have, who knows, like a pearl or something. I don't know. Like I was just saying to you, Justin, the other day that I don't wear cufflinks a lot. I have one shirt that has what they call French cuffs. And people give me cufflinks all the time. I can't wear them because I only have one shirt. So maybe he's wearing nipple rings like when you're a banker or a lawyer, you really have to wear a blue or a gray suit, right? You can't wear a tan suit. You can't wear a green suit. You can't wear like a zoot suit. You got to wear the corporate uniform. It's basically blue, very dark blue, or gray, very dark gray. And you're getting outside that, people say, ooh, who's the weirdo? If you're in a large firm setting, large corporate setting. That's the thing about men. You have to dress forgettable. And you wear either a white shirt or a light blue, or once in a while, maybe a light pink shirt. Like, you're not going to wear a green shirt. You're working on Wall Street base, you're not going to wear a green shirt. People are going to say, who's the weirdo? You're allowed to express yourself through your tie, but even that has to be sort of normal. So where does a fella express himself? Fellas should not have rings. Maybe you got a wedding ring, and that's about it. I mean, if you're a Super Bowl champ, I'll give you a pass for wearing your Super Bowl ring, but that's unwieldy. That's not the kind of thing you're probably going to do all the time. You're walking around with all that gold. If you're a rapper, I get it. Go to Jacob the jeweler, he'll set you up. Love, hate, beef ribs, I get it. I'm not going to get into that again. I'm talking about if you're in the corporate world. Cufflinks are one of the only places where a fella gets to be a little bit wacky. I've seen salt and pepper cufflinks. Have you ever seen that? I've seen hot and cold taps. I've seen, believe it or not, I've seen cufflinks that have a tiny bit of oil sands bitumen in them. I thought those were pretty cool. The other day, a priest gave me cufflinks that had the letter Nun from Nazareth. That's how Christians are identified by ISIS terrorists. Their houses are marked with a Nun for persecution. So he gave me the Nun for Nazarene. You can get a bit wacky. I think Governor Andrew Cuomo got a bit wacky because he thought, like, but what kind of governor would do that? Put the nip shot up again. What kind of governor at an official event, and don't tell me he didn't know how he looked. He's not wearing a suit and tie. He's wearing a tight-fitting shirt that shows he's got the barbell nips on. He did that because he wants you to know. He wants you to know, and not just that, he knows he's You can't touch him. He can get as weird as he wants, as sexual as he wants, and you can't touch him because, look, he's the Emmy-winning governor of one of the largest states in America. He's going to be the next attorney general. He's got the whole state in his hands, and he's going to do whatever he bloody well wants, and what are you going to say or do about it? So it's weird to begin with. You want to express yourself weirdly? Use your cufflinks. It's even weirder that he puts on a show at an official event. What does that say about his mind? That says that for years, for decades, he's done whatever he wants sexually at the workplace, and no one's ever dared to say, boss, maybe just tone it down a bit. Boss, maybe be like the BLT, keep the hot side hot, keep the cool side cool. Don't mix it. You want to get a little bit rowdy at your home life? We're in an era where I don't think that's gonna deter some. I mean, listen, the characters who have been mayor and governor of New York and even president, it's hard to shock anyone anymore. You want to do that at home, fine. But he's doing that in the workplace. He's doing that at official functions. What does that tell you about a guy? That he is sexual in his workplace. And no one ever stops him, and he won't stop himself. And since now 3 women have come forward, young women, 30 years, 35 years, almost 40 years his junior, saying, oh yeah, he touched me. He touched my bare skin, he touched my tush, he asked to kiss me, he wanted to snuggle up, like all these things. Can you give me some of the New York Times? Like the New York Times, yeah, 3rd woman comes forward with harassment allegations against Cuomo. That's on what, ABC or something. Scroll down a bit, let's see if they have the image of the woman whose face, like, so there was a wedding, so that's the Attorney General. There's, let's see that's Cuomo there. Yeah, so I want to show the 3 women involved. They're all beautiful women. They're all 30 plus years younger than him. But in every single case, the power imbalance, it's like Bill Clinton and the interns. But this is what male feminists do. This is what Trudeau does. Justin Trudeau talks about what a male feminist he is. And of course, in his real life, he's not a male feminist. Don't take my word for it. He sexually assaulted Rose Knight in Creston, BC. And he apologized to her later by saying, oh, sorry, I didn't know you were a journalist. I thought you were just some piece of meat I could grope. If I had known you were a journalist, I wouldn't have done that. That's male feminist for you. And yeah, so Cuomo accused. Can we see, I want to show the women. Yeah, so that's, yeah, click on that one. That's the 3rd woman. Just at a wedding, he goes right up to her. Anna said she felt uncomfortable and embarrassed when Mr. Cuomo placed his hands on her face and asked to kiss her. They just met. They were at a wedding. Justin, have you ever put your hands on a woman's face like that other than your wife? Now, Cuomo is in a nebulous, let's say he's single for all intents and purposes. But you just met a woman, but the key here is it's in public. And that's the Trudeau move too. Do it in public, stare them down, and we've shown the pictures of Trudeau groping every single one of his female cabinet ministers. He does it in public on purpose. Put the picture up just for a second, and let me just make my point again about why doing it in public is so important. If these were the only 2 people in a room, and Andrew Cuomo went up to a strange woman he had just met, put his hands on her face like that, and said, let me kiss you, she would run away, she would slap him, she would kick him in the nuts and go, she would scream maybe, because she would say, I am being sexually assaulted by some gross 70 or 63-year-old guy, and I'm 20-something. That's what would happen if you were by yourself. But the fact that everyone is there around her transforms this into a bizarre moment. And this is what Trudeau specializes in. This is what Joe Biden specializes in when Joe Biden gropes all these women when they're being sworn in. Like, you know that series of gropey vids where someone's being sworn in, Joe Biden's overseeing it, and the family is there, the wife, the daughters. And that's where Joe Biden does his groping. You would think that's the insane place to do your groping, in public. No. The fact that it's in public is what lets him get away with it, because the woman in every case says, oh, this is normal here, I guess. Everything I've ever been taught about don't be groped, respect yourself, don't let some stranger grope you, kiss you, touch you, make you uncomfortable. I guess it was wrong when it's someone who's so powerful, he is brazen enough to get away with it, and no one is going to stop me. So if in private that, let me kiss you, she would have screamed, kicked, run away. She doesn't find him attractive. But because it was in public, she said, oh, do I make a scene? I'm at my friend's wedding. I don't want to ruin my friend's wedding. This is the governor. I don't want to lose a one-upmanship, brinksmanship, confidence game in here. I have to submit to it. I'm extremely uncomfortable. This old, gross man just asked to kiss me, but he's getting away with it, and I don't want to lose face. I don't want to be the one to puncture the balloon here and pop the balloon and get it would be like the shocking explosive sound of popping the balloon. Get off of me! And everyone would stop, the music would stop, everyone would look, and you'd see a governor and a young woman, and who would they believe, even if they just saw it? They'd say, oh, don't be so thin-skinned. Oh, don't be so sensitive. Oh, you misinterpreted. Oh, he's the government. Oh, how dare you? He's the greatest governor. Oh, how dare you? He's a great feminist. Don't you know that? How dare you? He's taking on Donald Trump. How dare you? He's just won an Emmy. So doing it in public is essential for these molesters to get away with it. That's how Joe Biden operates. That's how Justin Trudeau operates. Can you get me the other women? I want to show. So that was a nice young woman. I think she was in her mid-20s there. Imagine going right up to a woman, hands on face. Can I kiss you? What are you doing? Pervasive harassment. Former Cuomo advisor says governor kissed me on the lips. Lindsey Boylan said New York Governor Andrew Cuomo repeatedly made inappropriate comments to her, including telling her, let's play strip poker. Again, beautiful young woman. I think she's running for some Democratic office, so she's not like a Republican. A former aide said New York Governor Andrew Cuomo subjected her to pervasive harassment when she worked for him, including numerous inappropriate comments in front of other people and a kiss on the lips while they were alone. Let's play strip poker, the former aide, Lindsey Boylan, said Cuomo told her on one occasion. I'm compelled to, it goes on. The fact that most of it was in public goes to my point that no one wanted to be the person to blow the whistle on the governor. And the kiss in private shows that Cuomo thought that he could get away with it, even there. And can you show the image of the third woman, who I think was like an intern or something? I'm sorry, I forget, like a volunteer. It's not critical that you find it, but I want to show one more video. So that's Lindsey Boylan, but there was another woman, right? Lindsey Boylan was the first, and then there was a second woman, and then the hands-on face wedding photo was the third. It's not that important. Take my word for it. There's been three, but I want to show you a video. So Cuomo was at some lunch, and he was eating, and the food there was sausages or hot dogs. And I want to show you this entirety of this video clip. Do we have the whole thing? It starts when you see Cuomo calling over an aide. And I can't lip read, but he basically says, hey, go give her a sausage. So Cuomo's bantering with some pretty young reporter. Then he beckons over some staffer. And we don't hear what he says, but it's pretty obvious. He says, go give her a sausage, because 10 seconds later, that's what he does. So this staffer on command gives this pretty female reporter a sausage. And then all Andrew Cuomo says is, will you eat the whole sausage? I want to see you eat the whole sausage. Yeah, eat it. Here, watch. Oh, I think we need a minute. We'll come back to that. But again, it's in public. His staff are all enablers, just like Harvey Weinstein's staff were all enablers. They knew their job. Here, take a look.
Sandwich, that's it.
Will you eat the whole sandwich?
I will eat the whole sandwich.
Yeah?
Okay.
Who made sausage
I can
the
eat the whole sandwich.
food? Like, it wasn't like this 15, 20 years ago. It was when Rick Blasio did it. Then it became the thing you need to eat. I think.
Oh, you're gonna
That's right.
Look at that. Yeah, shoot it. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I want to see you eat the whole sausage.
I don't know if I should eat the whole sausage in front of you, but I'm definitely going to eat it.
You gotta do it. No excuses. You know everyone, you know the county executive?
I do. Now you're going to know me at a whole different level. When I eat the sausage.
My daughter Michaela.
Hello. Nice to meet you.
I think we're going to be here a while.
We might be here a while.
These are
Now
just-
there's a lot of pressure on me to eat
Oh,
this.
yes, it is. Oh, yeah.
be on this side, huh?
Wait.
Yeah,
Can
that's
I
right.
take a selfie with you while I eat my sandwich?
There you go.
I think that's a fair trade.
Yeah, there's too much sausage in that thing.
You came to the inside the cage.
That's right.
Said you
Who would have thought my golden ticket?
Thanks.
It's not as easy to eat this in front of all these cameras as you make it seem.
Well, that's right.
Now
That's
I
the
know how you
order.
animals feel.
Not only do you have to eat the sausage, but
That's
you
all.
have to.
That's part of the being the governor, right? Learning how to
Well,
eat.
there is a course
Yeah.
when you get elected to office. They have a course called Eating on Camera, and then eating on camera while talking to colleagues.
Don't do it.
I haven't passed that course yet.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I need to make sure that I don't get it on you.
Now, I'm not saying that that was sexual harassment, but you can see his familiarity. He spots a pretty woman who seems interested in his power. Immediately sends a servant to get him, go get her, give her food, have her sit next to me. Eat the whole sausage. You got to put the whole sausage. You got to eat the whole sausage. And what's gross is you can see he does this all the time. And again, the fact that he's doing it with other people around him shows two things. Number one, that he's so comfortable doing this all the time and everyone has deferred to him and no one has ever said, boss, you're being a bit gross. And two, his daughter was there. That's what I think he said. You've met my daughter. So this is his way of saying, look, everything's normal. You're not going to get all weird about this, are you? This is weird. Let me put my hands on your face and kiss you. He didn't do that here, but he did that at the wedding. He, like Bill Clinton, constantly scanning wherever he is, finding pretty young people, if it's a staffer, if it's a stranger at a wedding, if it's a journalist. And there's no accounting for taste. Some women perhaps are attracted to power. I mean, the governor of the state of New York has in many ways more influence, power, fame than the Prime Minister of Canada, for example. I mean, Cuomo in his domain is the king. And while he's a 63-year-old man with nipple clips, I can imagine that a certain number of women are wide-eyed and smiley and happy like that one was. And Cuomo, you can see his moves there. Now, I'm not calling that sexual harassment, even though he clearly was focused on saying, eat the whole sausage. But that absolutely corroborates his approach at the wedding with the staffer. He said, kiss me, let's play strip poker. He is a typical male feminist. Now, we have Chris Cuomo on Andrew Cuomo. Is that after these allegations came up? Yeah, let's play this just for a second. So this is his brother Chris, who's 50, on CNN. Take a look.
Before we start tonight, let me say something that I'm sure is very obvious to you who watch my show.
And thank you for that. You're straight with me, I'll be straight with you. Obviously, I'm aware of what's going on with my brother. And obviously, I cannot cover it because he is my brother. Now, of course, CNN has to cover it. They have covered it extensively, and they will continue to do so. I have always cared very deeply about these issues, and profoundly so. I just wanted to tell you that. There's a lot of news going on that matters also, so let's get after that.
Well, first of all, why is it a conflict of interest for Chris Cuomo to talk about his brother when his brother's in trouble, but not a conflict of interest for Chris Cuomo to talk about his brother Andrew, to praise him? Like, I can understand a rule that says, look, you just got to, you're brothers, you love each other no matter what. It's obviously a conflict of interest when our job as journalists is to hold government to account. So just if it comes to the governor, let's just let another reporter handle it. So I understand saying we just can't cover Governor Cuomo positively or negatively. But what we heard there is saying, oh, it's a negative story, so of course I can't cover it. Well, that's true. But you've always covered it when you were boosting him, when you were covering for him during the pandemic. And I want to show you, I think we have one more clip, do we, of them talking about how Cuomo's single and he's on the prowl. Take a look at this.
False. False.
Do you think
False.
that you are an attractive person now because you're single and ready to mingle? Do you really think you are some desirable single person and that this is not just people's pain coming out of them?
I think beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Listen to you. You got an answer for anything. You're feeling pretty good about yourself these days, aren't you?
Yeah. He's single and ready to mingle. See, the thing is, if a 63-year-old man with nipple clips wants to get out there and mingle, whether it's in a dungeon, his own home, or in, Tinder, Grindr, whatever, I think we all got to say that's fine. Just don't do something that puts you in danger of extortion or blackmail. That's one of the problems with sexual deviance in any leader is the extortion threat, the blackmail threat. Do you doubt that communist China, which can hack any phone, any TV, any tech device, has all sorts of awful things about Governor Cuomo and Justin Trudeau? So that's why I don't even think it's based on morality. It's based on, well, now they have dirt on you. I mean, that's the honey trap. And it doesn't just apply to politicians on the left. In Canada, I think there was an MP named Bob Deckard, I'm going from memory, who had a romantic relationship with some Chinese asset. She later went back to China, and I think he was removed from some parliamentary committee. Forgive me if I don't have my facts to... You want to just Google Bob Deckard? I want to make sure I get that right. He was a conservative. The honey trap espionage tactic of, what's your weakness? Is it money? Is it drugs? Is it you just like a free trip? Or is it sex? Remember we showed the other day this super fat mayor in California who is, objectively speaking, repulsive, but a Chinese female spy who would do anything for her country. That would include dating this, 350-pound mayor to influence on behalf of China. Yeah, that's the one. So Bob Deckard, this is not a partisan comment on my part. Politicians, both the right and the left, are susceptible to this. Any human is susceptible to this. And I'm not going to say which country it was, but I was once in a foreign country, and I was being escorted by the government to a meeting and to dinner. And I went to the meeting and the dinner and met a high-ranking official. And then they were taking me back to my hotel. And my handler pretty clearly said, do you want to go to this club of ill repute. Now, I forget how he phrased it. There was a bit of a language barrier. The idioms weren't the same. But this, and who am I? I'm a nobody. I'm just a journalist, activist, whatever, influencer, whatever. And this was years ago when basically said, do you want a prostitute? Courtesy of this, and I didn't want to, and I said no, obviously. I went back to the hotel. But how many other foreigners far away from home by themselves would have said, yeah, sure. I'm a million miles away. What happens, I'm not going to say the city, what happens in this city stays in this city. I'm guessing the answer is more than zero. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't have offered. And whether that's just to ingratiate you to this government, or I think more likely or just as likely to get the goods on you. Either just, well, I remember when, or more likely, I have photos and videos of. I think the honey trap of extortionate espionage is ubiquitous. But whatever it is, they'll find it. Do you have a drug habit? Do you need the drugs, or do you need the money for the drugs? Are you short of cash? Do you have, I think that Andrew Cuomo, the crazy thing is, he actually got away with it in plain sight. So if China had all this imagery of him, videotape, whatever, the irony is, he thought he was bulletproof, so he would do it out in the open. He's single and ready to mingle. Let's read some super chats. I'm not going to tell you what country it was. You would be disappointed if you knew. Laird Kintyre, $2. Ezra, you missed my super chat yesterday. Live free. You said, I can't live in an anti-life lockdown world. I need my life back. Yeah, me too. I feel that way very much. And I think a lot of people do. I think the world is splitting into two parts. The parts that want to live in the before times, live free, with the risks that entails. And the part that likes the comfort and false sense of security of the lockdown, house arrest. And yesterday, let me show you a video of the governor of Texas saying, all right, we're done. We're done. Take a look at this.
For nearly a half a year, most businesses have been open either 75% or 50%. And during that time, too many Texans have been sidelined from employment opportunities. Too many small business owners have struggled to pay their bills. This must end. It is now time to open Texas 100%. So today, I'm issuing a new executive order that rescinds most of the earlier executive orders. Effective next Wednesday, all businesses of any type are allowed to open 100%. Also, I am ending the statewide mask mandate. Now, despite these changes, remember this. Removing state mandates does not end personal responsibility or the importance of caring for your family members and caring for your friends and caring for others in your community.
Well, that's great. And what's so interesting is, because you can have 50 different states in the U.S., and each one of them has a lot of autonomy. A typical American state has more authorities over itself than a typical Canadian province. In fact, our constitutions are opposite in that regard. What is not described, like any doubts, defer to the feds in Canada. Any doubts defer to the states in the U.S. That's my understanding of the differences of constitutional law. I stand to be corrected. So you really had 50 different laboratories of public policy You saw the extreme lockdowns in places like New York and California. You saw the negligence of nip-clip Cuomo sending thousands of sick seniors into long-term care homes. So you saw that approach. And then you saw the approach of Texas. And now I think that it's coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the pandemic. I think people are good and tired of things. And now that those who want a vaccine pretty much can get it in the States and Canada, we still don't have it because Trudeau doesn't know how to negotiate anything other than a speaking fee from, a charity he rings out. You see states that are saying, we're done this. It's not part of our Texas way of thinking. And then immediately Mississippi, which is in the South, says, us too. Here's a clip from Mississippi.
I signed what I expect to be one of my last executive orders regarding COVID-19. This new order removes all of our county mask mandates and allows businesses to operate at full capacity without state-imposed rules or restrictions. And
there's just like this race to see who can get out of that really bad last year as possible. Kristi Noem, one of my favorites, you got to admit she's great. Governor of South Dakota, she chimed in. So she sees Texas and Mississippi lift the lockdown. She says, hey, wait a minute, fellas. We've been there the whole time. Here's what she said. Oh, looks like we're having trouble finding it there. There we go. South Dakota students have been learning in the classroom this entire school year. It's the best decision for their overall health, and it's the best way that we can help them learn and grow. Like she's just basically saying, keep doing the right thing, Greg Abbott of Texas. The media is attacking you because they can't allow freedom to succeed. It would disprove their entire agenda. So this is Kristi Noem's way of saying, hey, Governor Abbott, glad you're joining me. So that's her way of saying I was ahead of you. Of course, this is a great shame to the Democrats who have had harsh lockdowns but have had no better outcomes. In fact, worse, Gavin Newsom, the appalling governor of California, serial lockdown cheater, shuts down the restaurants but goes to private restaurant parties without masks, without social distancing with all his friends. He wanted to get in his jab, so he says, absolutely reckless. Actually, they have better health outcomes than you do, boss. And of course, my favorite of all, and I don't know if we have any graphics for it, is Florida. Ron DeSantis, just great. Every day says and does something great. By the way, he's the fastest vaccinator in America. If you're worried about that, and some people are, there's a lot of seniors who retire in Florida. So he's had a real push to get seniors vaccinated if they want it. Here, let's listen. Did we miss something at the very beginning? Did he say anything or not really?
While so many other states kept locking people down over these many months, Florida lifted people up.
All right, that's what they're applying. Let's listen. It's only a 1-minute clip.
Florida schools are open, and we are one of only a handful of states in which every parent has the right to send their child to school in person. All Floridians have a right to earn a living, and our citizens are employed at higher rates than those in the nation as a whole. Every job is essential. If you're working hard to earn a living, we've got your back in the state of Florida.
I really like him, and I'm not alone in that sentiment. He, other than Donald Trump himself, Ron DeSantis scored the highest in the CPAC straw poll. That's what they call it. That's the conservative political affairs committee that had their big meeting a week ago, their annual convention. So everyone likes DeSantis because he's leading a big state, doing it really well, and he's not a lockdowner. So you've got 50 U.S. states, and you can see the Republican leaders, maybe those who have national ambitions, are trying to get out front and saying, yeah, we're not a lockdowner here. In fact, we're fighting back against lockdowners. I really admire that, and I'm a little bit jealous of that. In theory, in Canada, you ought to be able to have 10 different paths. 10, just like you have 50 competitors in America for policy, you ought to have 10 in Canada, the territories. Largely, a lot of decisions in the territories being made in Ottawa, the 3 northern territories, but we don't see a lot of difference amongst the provinces. Yes, the lockdowns are less severe in Alberta and BC, but not by that much. It's almost as if there's a race to the bottom. Whatever kooky ideas schemed up in one place, it's immediately copied by the others. You have, it's like the 10 premiers are trying to travel in a pack, none of them getting separated, so they all do the same dumb thing at the same time. I really am envious of that. Yeah, that Chris Cuomo, that Andrew Cuomo, what a piece of work, eh? Let's get to the super chats here. I have to be off I have an interview at 1:05 I have to do, so we've got to be done at the top of the hour. Martin Sable, $20. Sadly, you cannot rely on police these days to help that sexual assault victim. Cops are busy following Justin Trudeau or Tory's orders instead of doing their job. Aaron wants to be Prime Minister, but is scared of the CBC that he can easily defund in a day. Well, look, if Stephen Harper didn't defund the CBC with a majority, do you really think Aaron O'Toole is going to defund them? And do you really think Aaron O'Toole is going to get a majority or even a minority? I just don't see it. I think you're referring to the sexual assault of someone who was at one of Trudeau's COVID jails. Our Drea Humphrey actually interviewed that woman. We blurred her face, obviously, but I would like to show you an excerpt from that interview, which you can find elsewhere on our website, on our YouTube channel. Here, take a look at this.
When I turned around, he was like, oh, I'm already turned on. And he's looking at himself in the mirror like a psychopath. I'm already turned on. I have a boner. And then I was like getting more irritated, scared. And I'm like, you need to get out like now, you know. There was someone making noise again. So he refused, he waited. And finally, like the third time when I turned around and like tried to escort him out, he told his pants were down.
Today, I'm going to be sharing with you a report of a young woman who says that she wasn't just forced to check into a federal quarantine hotel, but that in doing so, it left her helpless and that she ended up being sexually assaulted. This is beyond unacceptable, so please watch the report of this brave woman, whom I'll call Sarah, in full, and don't forget to share it to raise awareness about just how dangerous these COVID jails can be. Drea Humphrey here with Rebel News, and if you're in Canada, you've no doubt heard about the despicable quarantine hotels that the federal government has sicked upon its own people simply for trying to return back to Canada. The title quarantine hotel is a little bit misleading, actually. It almost makes it sound like a peaceful getaway for some deathly ill people who have nowhere else to go. But in reality, as you can see at many of our investigative reports at rebelnews.com, these are often undisclosed locations where even healthy and asymptomatic people are forced to check in and have to wait to be told when they can check out. That's why we call them COVID jails here. But even that term, honestly, it's a little bit too nice. After all, prisoners in Canada can let their family know where they are. They're not forced to pay $666 a day to stay in prison, and they definitely are fed food and water in a timely fashion, unlike these people who claim that they had to wait 2 days to have food.
You know what? I would play more of that, but I want to invite you to watch the whole thing on YouTube because we have to get through some bit. We have offered that young lady our legal assistance. She's welcome to take it for free. Obviously, we, as you know, have more than 500 people that we have helped legally and are helping. And actually, we take on more clients every day. Martin Sable, another $5. Amazing how Doug related to Rob. Doug brags about spending billions of taxpayers' dollars. Rob be out there helping businesses that would never close. That would never close with Rob. Yeah, it is amazing that Rob Ford and Doug Ford were from the same family. They couldn't be more politically opposite. And by the way, rest in peace, Rob. Gordon Gower, $21. So are we going to get out of front of proof of vaccination initiatives, regulations, and coercion, or will we wait until after the fact again? Oh, it's coming. It's coming in the UK. It's coming in the European Union. And do you really think Trudeau's going to resist the latest World Health Organization style fad? Absolutely, it's coming. Bill Howie, $5 rather than fraud-inducing mail and phone-in voting. Elections Canada should rent voting booth space at Costco, Walmart, Loblaws because they are immune to COVID. That's very funny, and it's not a bad idea. Aaron Smith, $10. We see what's happening in the harshest lockdown countries like here, US, UK, and Australia. What's happening in the rest of the world? They don't want us to know. Good work, Rebel. You know, that's a good question, and I can't say that I know with any authority. I see that Sweden has always had a light touch, or almost always had a light touch during the lockdown. They seem to be doing fine. I just can't speak to other places. Israel's had an extremely strict lockdown and lots of vaccination, but their vaccination rates don't seem to really, their infection rates don't really seem to be much different than ours without the vaccine. So I don't have a lot of information for you, I'm sorry. Alex, $5. Yo, Ezra, is the phrase little potato still banned in the House of Commons? The Stone PM is begging for baked potato jokes from any outgoing MP. Well, little potato, of course, is what China calls Justin Trudeau. I guess Trudeau is a homophone for little potato, or for potato. And they used to call Pierre Trudeau potato. So Trudeau, being the son of potato, is little potato. It's not exactly a term of respect or stature. The New York Times itself, which doesn't like Donald Trump much, said that the nickname for Donald Trump in China was either Donald the Strong or Uncle Donald. But they called Trudeau little potato. Chrystia Freeland thought that was wonderful, by the way. She thought that was just a great thing. War Machine 98, something that stood out from Abbott's announcement, personal responsibility, I'm not responsible for other people's health. Well, he's saying, look, govern yourself. Don't look to us to govern you. That's what he meant, I think. He was saying to people, use your own judgment. I'm not going to impose mine on you. Yeah, he was saying use judgment. And everyone can come up with their own. I've always said choose your own fear level. You want to stay locked in your house wearing triple masks and never coming out again, never seeing any people again? All right, knock yourself out. But let the rest of us live at our own fear level. Martin Sable, $5. No wonder Tory loves Florida when he flies there to his estate while ordering Toronto Police Service to harass taxpayers. Oh, it's miserable. And I showed you yesterday that Ontario actually has the lowest rate of cases in Canada, other than the very small population centers. And yet it has the harshest lockdowns other than Montreal. Jane Braid, $5. Vancouver Island's COVID hospitalizations is 0.00195% of population, yet people want flights and ferries shut down. Yeah, well, listen, there's a lot of reasons people love the lockdown. Gives them something to think about, something to worry about, but also a solution to the worry. Lets them be part of a moment, lets them be part of a team, lets them be an informant or a snitch, lets them scold people, lets them play act. People sometimes need something to worry about. So and of course there's the people who benefit, cui bono, we always say in Latin, who benefits, who's making money off every mask and every jab, who's getting, it's like a war, there's profiteers. Who are the profiteers in this war? Chris Lynch, $5. What do you think is most important issue to Albertans right now? Kenny said yesterday that fighting COVID was most important to us. He's Notley 2.0. If that is what Jason Kenney said yesterday, and I didn't see that myself, if that is the case, I believe he is incorrect. The number of people who have died from the pandemic in Alberta is not shocking, not abnormal. It's maybe 2 or 3 times what a regular flu season would have. I say for the umpteenth time, I'm not celebrating or downplaying the severity of a single death, but the fact is we are all going to die of something. And the average age of death in Alberta is 82. The average person who dies from the pandemic has 3 pre-existing comorbidities of severe consequence: diabetes, kidney failure, stroke, things like that. Never at any time have the hospitals in Alberta come even close to being overwhelmed. So the pandemic itself is not the crisis. The lockdown is the crisis. There are other crises there too, including Justin Trudeau's war against pipelines. But it is simply not a quantitative or qualitative fact that the pandemic is the biggest problem Alberta faces. If you turned off the media and if you stopped wearing masks, you would not know that there was a pandemic. That's why masks are so critical to their plans. It's the flag. It's the constant reminder. It's the constant reminder that you're supposed to be afraid out there. That's not normal. All right, well, it's 12:52. I think I've caught up on the Super Chats. I have a few other things on my notes. Did we not show Mocha going into the cops going in the church in Calgary? We didn't do that? No? Okay, so one of the things we do every weekend, and I'm just so grateful to the team. You know, most times we work Monday to Friday, right? But that hasn't been the case for the last year. For the last year, we've covered things on weekends routinely. Almost for a full year, David Menzies and Efron or Mocha or Alex or Ishmael, I'm trying to think who else would go down there, Lincoln, sorry, would go down to Toronto and film the anti-lockdown protests. Like, I don't think David's taken a weekend off in 1 year. So working hard all the time in Toronto. I've attended once when I thought the police were getting out of control. Lately we've started covering the church rebellion, which obviously happens on Sundays. So Sheila has been going to the church in Stony Plain, I think it's Stony Plain, just west of Edmonton. Mocha has been going to a church in Calgary. We had Lincoln go to a church in Medicine Hat. We're looking at one in Saskatoon. Obviously, we've covered things in Ontario. So every weekend, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 people out at different churches, not just because we want to cover the news, because we also know that merely the presence of rebel news can scare off cops. And we know that from the Calgary church. I think I showed you about a week ago drone footage of when Kean and Mocha showed up at the Calgary church. The bylaw officers ran away to a nearby parking lot, and then Mocha deployed the drone, and it was very funny. We literally ran off the bad guys. Last weekend, Mocha was back at that church in Calgary, and the thing is, we're not the boss of the church. We don't own the church, and the church has its own legal counsel. So our role is only to be journalists, so it is not my place to say they absolutely should not have let anyone on their property without a search warrant. What are you doing? That's what I would say, but it's not my show. So Mocha was there. I want to show you. This is a small church in Calgary. It's not the big church like in Edmonton. Small church, but they still have rights. They have property rights. They have rights to be free of warrantless search and seizure. That's right in our charter. Do you know what that means? That means someone can't come into your place and go through your stuff. They can't come into your place at all unless, if they're in hot pursuit, that's one exception. But even that, I'd have to check the law. A cop just can't come into your place. A cop shows up at the door, the answer is, can I see a search warrant, please? It's not, come on in. And at a church especially, is it section 179.2 of the Criminal Code that forbids disturbing a religious assemblage? Let me see if I can find that. Criminal Code 179. Just going from memory. No, that's vagrancy. Criminal Code, religious assemblage. 176. Can you call up that? Do you want me to send you a link? It's not just, it's a very serious thing. Here, I just sent it to you. It's a very serious thing to interrupt a church or any religious, or obviously it applies to mosques and synagogues and whatnot. Here, let me read it to you. Let's read 176.2. There's a lot, there's obstructing or violence or arrest of officiating clergymen. That's section 1. But section 2, do you see it? It says disturbing religious worship or certain meetings. So it actually applies beyond a church. Let me read that to you. Everyone, so that means whether you're a layman or a cop, applies to everyone, everyone who willfully disturbs or interrupts. That's a pretty low burden. You don't have to menace or threaten or even stop it. You just have to disturb it, interrupt it. Everyone who willfully disturbs or interrupts an assemblage of persons. So they don't even have to be members of the church. They don't have to have a certain religious, it's just, are you assembled? An assemblage of persons met for religious worship, so you're there to do a religious thing, or for a moral, social, or benevolent purpose. So you don't even have to be religious yourself. You don't even have to say a prayer. If you are there for a moral, social, or benevolent purpose, like that, to me, plain reading without looking at the case law, to me that says you're training a seeing eye dog. You're giving soup at a soup kitchen. You're feeding the homeless. In fact, those cops who arrested Arthur Pavlovsky for a benevolent purpose is guilty of an offense punishable on summary conviction. So, having just read that, may I now invite you to look at what Mocha documented in Calgary last weekend.
I just want to say welcome and thank you to those who are part of our Alberta Health Services, our peace officers, and CPS. Why don't we give them a round of applause since they're here? You know, we're here this morning because Christ is worthy, because Christ is King, because Christ has called us to gather, to worship, to celebrate with one another, to practice hospitality, and to do so together as a body.
You brought your guns into a church? You brought armed police into a church. Why did you do that? Were they rowdy? Was there a threat of violence? Why did you bring armed police into a church? Did you have a search warrant? Clearly you didn't. You did that to intimidate and threaten, didn't you? Why the church let them in is beyond me. I mean, I'm not a New Testament guy. I'm more Old Testament, so that whole turn the other cheek business, that's outside my cultural experience. But how about render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's? And if you look at what is Caesar's, that's another way of saying look at the criminal code. You don't have to let a bunch of armed cops into your religious ceremony just because they knock on your door. And that's not just God's law, that's Caesar's law. You don't have to let them disturb or interrupt your religious assemblage. That's in Caesar's law. I'm not saying to the Christian church, why aren't you You know, why? I'm saying if you're going to grant something to Caesar, why don't you at least hold him to his own rules? The secular law of Canada, the Criminal Code of Canada, and the Charter of Rights of Canada says there's no such thing as a warrantless search or seizure. That's illegal. The Criminal Code, I just read it to you, said you can't disturb a religious assemblage. Why are you letting cops in there with guns? Who the hell sent them? There is no reason other than to intimidate. That is a deep disgrace. Again, I'm not the advisor or lawyer to the church, and maybe they have some deep and cryptic purpose of which I'm unaware. But I believe that everyone who was a participant in that uninvited interruption, and I saw they were quiet as mice, those cowards, but I saw at least one man who was disturbed and interrupted, and you look back, what's going on? Every one of those so-called cops and enforcers should have to answer before a judge why they themselves should not be charged with violating the criminal code. Good for Mocha for documenting that. I thank him for making the journey, and it is my intention to continue, as long as our journalists are up for it, to have eyes on as many churches in Canada as possible, knowing that we will see this kind of law breaking from the government again. And hopefully our documenting of this misconduct will one day lead us to be free like they are in Texas, Mississippi, South Dakota, and other jurisdictions. It's 1:02. I'm going to finish up the super chats and get out of here because I gotta go really quick. I think we're all caught up. All right. Well, thanks to everybody who did a super chat. And Jane Bray, should us Christians be worried about the government harvesting our organs? Well, they harvest organs in China. In Canada, I think the law might be different province to province on mandatory organ donation. I think some provinces are demanding you opt out now. But I don't think that they've gone beyond that. I think that's quite audacious for the government to say your default is that we get to cut your body up after your death. I'm all for people voluntarily donating their organs, but I think it's inappropriate for the government to assume that's the default state. But that's where we are now. All right, my friends, it's 1:03. I got to go. Thanks very much for joining us today. Thanks for your super chats. Watch the rest of our videos on our channel, including Drea's interview with a sexual assault victim. Do we have a dog video today? We do. Let me say goodbye to you now. I'll be back for my 8 p.m. show. And until then, here's a dog video by Justin. See ya.